talking about women and love that we have for women. And you know our brother Khabib, right?
Yes.
Recently, he was asked by a woman, and it seems like it was set up. You know, it was like
in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I think it was in Saudi.
So the woman came and she asked him.
Question for people who want to get into the fighting industry and start a fighting career, what tips do you recommend, especially for a female?
For female, I have very good advice. Be fighter inside your home. And one more advice. All the time finish your husband. Smash him really bad.
I mean, now I'm fled from the...
What advice would you give?
Yes.
What advice would you give for a woman who wants to get in the cage?
And I got a backlash, and he said, fight in the house.
Yeah, fight. Yeah, he said smash your husband, right?
Yeah, he said that as well. Yeah.
He said smash your husband, but then he got a lot of, and people were asking me,
He got on the front page news here, and I'm not sure if it's front page.
Was it?
Yeah, one of the right-wing newspapers we have was called Daily Mail.
You're kidding me?
Yeah. They put him on there. I'm not sure if it was a front page feature. I don't think it was, but it was a feature.
So I was thinking about this. I said, hold on. I mean, he's coming from it from an angle of love. I mean, loving, really honoring the woman.
Yeah.
And everybody who's there is actually, nobody's booing, and it's a different culture. But how can you go ahead and implement now? Because if you're a Jew, if you're a Christian, if you're someone who now wants to be at the highest level of morality or religion, you believe in God, they're going to be on this side. So how do you, how would you answer this when you come down to it? How could you impose your cultural, your worldview on a whole nation and start to put him down? Because we believe he's honored, and I think that we would have more evidence and proof, and from something that's not so subjective, that's objective, that to substantiate what he's saying, that's even more beneficial.
Absolutely. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine if it was the opposite way around. Imagine if a man came up and he asked the same question, right? And he said, what can I do, and what if I want to be a fighter, UFC fighter, etc. And he said to him, I give you advice to fight in the home. Would it bring half as much controversy as it did? Or if it was a woman telling a man that, it wouldn't bring any controversy whatsoever. And the reason why is because there is no controversy attached to doing things like raising your children. The only controversy that's attached to that is that which the second and third wave feminists have put on it. But really and truly, what makes working in a career, working for a man usually is anyways, for a woman, any more beneficial for that woman than raising her own children, who will grow to love her. I mean, the truth is, when that woman is working in, let's say, we have it in a city, like, or some or corporation organization, the man who's usually in charge of that position of power can say to her, go away, you're fired. Obviously, there are employment rights and all that kind of thing in place, but that's still a possibility. And she's still working for a man. So whether she's fighting in the corporation, fighting for her career, or she has a job elsewhere, she's still going to be exerting a lot of effort. So I don't think there was that much controversy, or that there is that much controversy in that. He's just saying that he doesn't see UFC as a good option for a woman. I would put to him that I don't see UFC as a good option for a man either, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because from our Islamic perspective, there's a lot that goes wrong with it. I mean, you have kashf al-awrat, like, you have to show, which, to be fair, Khabib does as well, which is wrong, which he shows his thigh part of his leg. There's also the ring girls that have to come in, which is not
Explain
allowed.
that to me. I mean, how does that fit in the equation? I mean,
Right. So what I'm saying is that if we want to be honest with ourselves about like if we're talking about UFC or any other promotion, then we have to be completely honest, and we have to say, okay, well, actually, if it's not, to what extent is it a gender issue? Because why would it be haram? It would be haram because you have kashf al-awrat, you have the aura being shown. He does that himself. He could fix that problem by just covering his thigh.
Absolutely, yes.
The ring girls, he's not really too much in control of that, but it's something we cannot endorse, that you have a woman there being objectified, holding a card,
totally objectified. I mean, look at that.
Totally wrong. You have issues to do with the promotion itself, where it's a lot about ego, and that's completely against Islam. And ad-darar, which is another issue with creating mass harm to someone. And if you're doing that on a regular basis, I mean, I wouldn't tell my son to be a UFC fighter because because then I know, or even a boxer, because I know that can have a long-term effect on their mental faculties. Whereas a grappler or a BJJ practitioner, yeah, they might have some joint pain, etc., but it might not be to the extent whereby their mental faculties have a problem like that. So we're talking about health anyway. So the issue with a woman is obviously she's showing more of her aura. That's the main issue. That's the main difference. She's going to be showing more of her aura. From an Islamic perspective, there's more for a woman to cover than there is for a man. That's the main issue. Apart from that, I mean, the rulings that we just talked about are pretty universal and consistent. So to be honest and fair, we have to kind of look at what Khabib said and kind of analyze it from an Islamic perspective and say, well, I mean, you're right to an extent, but you also, you're not being completely honest to an extent as well, because the UFC and all these promotions and boxing promotions, they do things that for a man are haram to do, not just for a woman. So if we're being honest, we would say it like that. But the point on a woman being scrutinized because she's raising her children, I mean, the alternative being that she should be pumping money for the economy that a man's going to take and put into his pocket anyways, is quite ironic, I would say. So I don't buy that either. Yeah.
When you look at it, I mean, what you said, objectified. At the end of the day, with the ring girls, it's a sport. Why do you have women in G-string walking around? I mean, for any woman to think and to look, I mean, and the honor that the Creator has given the woman, right?
Exactly.
And they just have. For instance, any man, even if he's not, let's say, a person who's religious, usually back in Jahiliyyah, the man has, the beautiful woman, and he's showcasing her around. He's happy to see her. That's his trophy. But after he develops some feelings for her, the natural thing comes in, like cover up. Now he's like, before she had it up to the knee, up to the thigh, and he's like, look at my girl. And now he's like, he's telling her like, put more on, right? He's not that ghira, that natural jealousy comes in. But who would want their beloved, their wife, to be showcasing? But what are men doing now? What are men when they're looking at these women out there? What's he focused on? Oh, nice arm, or where's his mind at? Where's his mind? That's your wife now.
No, 100%. And this point of ghira, we were going to do a video with Sheikh Muhammad Uthman actually about, because wallahi this
how would you try protective jealousy?
Absolutely. So ghira is best translated into protective jealousy, and it can be from man to woman or woman to a man sometimes, but it's usually used in the context of protective jealousy in the context of a man protecting woman folk. And it's this idea of masculinity which I think is becoming more popular nowadays, with the influence of Jordan Peterson and other people like that, because the false divide that they've made now, or the false notion that, okay, there is no such thing as masculinity, it's all a social construct. This is the popular notion now of the second and third wave feminists. They say, look, there's no such thing as masculinity. Masculinity is a social construct, therefore, we should ignore these notions of masculinity and femininity and go back to a universalist kind of approach. Obviously, from an Islamic perspective, we reject this entirely, wholeheartedly reject this, because we believe that different things should be treated differently. Same thing can be treated the same, but different things should be. It's a simple thesis, yeah. So if different things are treated differently, and men and women have differences, then in cases of those differences, there should be a different prescription. And so, for example, we were talking about martial arts, and there's no doubt. I don't even think the biggest feminist in the world would argue the fact that men are stronger than women.
Why don't they put this? Why don't they have the same weight classes? Put her to fight the man in the same weight class.
I actually saw some things being said recently about this, right? And you know what? It's a really good question you're asking that question, because this links into the transgender debate. And I found something really interesting, and you can find it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the biggest feminists who's ever lived in the 21st century, who's still alive. Her name is Germaine Greer. Mm-hmm. She's written a book called The Female Eunuch. Yeah, in 1971 she wrote that book, and it's a very, very famous book. The woman is still alive, and you'll see if you go online, if you check her name, you'll see a clip of her talking about transgendered people. And feminists have grappled, not to use any puns here, but they've grappled over this point, right? What to do with transgender people. Mm-hmm. She's a hard advocate of the fact that someone who does the operation and becomes from XY to XX, first of all, that's not a legitimate thing. So she would say that it's not really, that person's not becoming a man now. Well, that person's not becoming a woman now. They should be identified with their previous biological identification. And as an extension of that argument, someone would argue, if a woman, for example, let's say you have a big Alistair Overeem, or I don't know, some sort of Khabib. I mean, obviously maybe not use the Khabib. Let's use Alistair Overeem as an
huge,
example, right?
He's heavyweight,
If he does the operation,
and have
or maybe not him, because I don't think they have that weight category in
Bob Sapp.
I think he's 175 kilos, that guy. I don't think he's actually 175 kilos.
You heard of Gary Goodrich?
No.
Go back. He accepted Islam. It's interesting that, he's a legend. But go ahead, keep going.
Let's say
he looks like Bob Sapp, almost like
Floyd Mayweather. Okay, he does an operation, and he now becomes he identifies himself as a woman. He automatically, as soon as he does that, is there going to be a fair competition between him and any other female boxer? Absolutely not.
No.
And the feminists will be the first ones. People like Jermaine Greer will be the first ones to come out and say, no, this is not fair. How can someone who has the mechanical infrastructure of a man, has had testosterone for all of their lives, has a muscular and skeletal structure which resembles that of a man, be in competition with a woman? This puts women in a disadvantageous position. And so they would reject it on that basis. But you can't have your cake and eat it both, because if they're making that argument, then fair enough, you can make that argument, which we would all agree with you on, but you have to also say then that means that men have these advantages, and therefore they should have certain different treatment to women.
Yes.
And if we say that, so to what extent now do we differ the treatment between men and women? And that's the question that we have to say, that we have to put forward. Because with this, we've identified that biology has an impact on social prescriptions. And if we've identified that, then the question is all about extent now. To what extent should biology have a difference, have something to say about social prescriptions between the two genders? And that's why we would say as Muslims, obviously the man has certain advantages and should complement the natural attributes of a woman with those advantages. And so, for instance, on this case of ghira, because this is what we kind of started off with, of ghira, the protective jealousy, even from a biological perspective, even though we're not evolutionist from a human perspective, they would even say from an evolutionary biology perspective, that's what they would argue, right? From an evolutionary biology perspective, from their perspective, right? The man is the hunter-gatherer, the man is the one who's been, doing these things. Even from their perspective, you can make a strong argument that this is the natural, most efficient state of a man to be in, right? And so for that reason and many others, ghira is something not only needed, but it's something which comes naturally.
Yeah. You have did they get much heat when you have Fedor Emelianenko, the Russian fighter? You had, I believe, George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
Last year I was with Horace Gracie. He was in the back seat, and we're riding. It was three of us, and we were talking about this issue, and they were all on the same page, just like Khabib.
Really, yeah.
But I'm just curious if they got this much press, this much negative feedback as he did.
Yeah.
And you do have a lot of people that have this belief also. I mean, they feel strongly about this, preserving the woman and not putting her out there to get. I mean, you're married, she's coming home, broken, bones in her face, and someone who you're her protector, you're supposed to guarantee her safety. You took her from what used to be, you took her from her father, and now you're going to go ahead and protect this woman.
Yes.
But these are great legends in the sport. They've also expressed the same thing like Khabib has expressed. Have you seen that they got this much backlash?
No, exactly, that's a good point. I think they're trying to link it to this narrative, isn't it? They're trying to link it to this whole Muslim narrative, and that Muslims are trying to.
Is it like fishing for anything?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Daily Mail article, I mean, it's very clear that they're linking it to his religion, they're linking it to his beliefs, etc. His Dagestan, all of those things. They want to make him out to be some alien, and so obviously. And that's why the UFC doesn't treat him with the same kind of respect it would treat someone like Conor McGregor.
Yeah. But what I said earlier, if you're a Jew, you're Christian, and you hold to Christianity or Judaism or any of these world religions, you would also, what would your be, let's stick with those two, as a Jew, practicing Jew or Christian.
Yes.
what would they say if they're asked this? To allow, like if you're a Christian, you wouldn't espouse to have. That?
Yeah, I mean, there's a verse in the Bible, First Timothy, it says that the head of every household is the man. When I went to a church recently, there was a debate between Adnan Rashid and a man called Samuel Green, and the women in the church were talking with a loud voice. Mm-hmm. And the other men there were like, you have to be quiet in the church. You shouldn't even be talking in the church.
Wait, the man said that in the...
Yeah. I'm not sure if this was recorded, but he definitely said this.
Hold on, paint that picture. So you're in the church. You're there.
I was in a church.
And there was a woman talking?
There was 2 or 3 women that were raising their voices.
And someone told them?
So the men, they were like, in the church, the woman can't talk over the man.
They said that?
Yeah, they said that.
Wow.
I was like, well, okay, at least they're sticking to their scriptures there,
That's amazing.
Because that's obviously something that says in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know why there's this stress on Islam and Muslims. I mean, you go anywhere in the world, forget about Islam and Muslims, forget about religion. You go to sub-Saharan Africa, gender roles are clearly defined. Go to Asia, most of Asia, gender roles, just because post-colonial white man has decided, after a certain time period of his life, that they want to impose these rules on human beings, we have to all follow suit and become silent, and all of our traditions are meaningless now until they change their mind once again.